Right, in 3, 2, 1. Hi everyone, welcome to the S.O.A.P. We are Mike and Dan tonight. Last year we talked about Supanova. That was last year. So we went to this year's one and we're going to have a good chat about that. So Dan, you were there as well. Remind us what happened last year, what happened this year.
All right, well, to remind everyone what Supanova is, for those who haven't listened, Supanova is a fan convention. It's focusing on science fiction, fantasy, film, TV, all that kind of pop culture stuff. Now, it's held annually, but what's unique about it is that each city in Australia has its own version of it. Normally, they're done in pairs. So you got Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, and the Gold Coast all host their own version of it. It's normally like Sydney and Perth, I think, are the pair that we have. And then it's like Gold Coast and Melbourne, I think, is the other one, and maybe like Brisbane and Adelaide, something like that. And for those, the same people go to those pairings, but not to all of them. So it's not the same person going to all different cities, and they're not hosted all at the same time. So the pairs are normally held back-to-back weekends, but then it's normally a couple of months between the next pairing. Now, for Sydney, that's hosted in the
Showground?
Yeah, in the Sydney Showground.
It's usually off the dome.
It's normally hosted around June. There's normally 2 sections to it these days. They split it up into 2 sections with a bit of a walkway between them. It's getting quite big. I swear every time I go, it gets a little bit bigger. The guests get a bit more well-known, and there's normally a lot more to do. And this year it certainly wasn't any different. There was a lot of people there, a lot of things that you could experience. I mean, you didn't get to see too much of it, Mike, but
No.
How did you find it?
Well, I was just doing my costuming and I leave early a little bit. So, yeah, it was a lot of people. Everyone's dressing up. Like, the caliber is just getting better and better as people get into costuming or cosplay.
Now, I believe your girlfriend also does a little bit of that?
Yeah, she did Tinkerbell.
And what kind of goes into that?
Well, I don't really ask that much. So it's generically you could say, and she did it as well. You start off with a base costume. So you could go to a costume shop and just pick up a Tinkerbell costume. In her case, I'm not picking up a Tinkerbell costume. It wouldn't look good with my thighs. Now, you're looking at a base costume. So say, for instance, I'm trying to get Dan to buy Jon Snow. Everyone, I think he looks like Jon Snow, so I'm trying to get him into wearing Jon Snow. However, we can't just buy, he wants primo stuff. So when you want to have really good cosplay, or costume or whatever, you need to start somewhere. So for instance, you can go to a costume shop or a Spotlight or whatever and buy something crap. Now, that'll have the basics. Like, let's say, for example, Jon Snow. They'll probably have like a dark jumpsuit. So you can cut that up. You can add to that. You can go and buy fur. You can go and buy like leather belts. You can buy additions. So say, for instance, my girlfriend did. She jumped in and she was doing a steampunk Tinkerbell. Very dust thing. Now, she had like, what do they call themselves? Try wearing a corset, right. So corset, leather corset, she had like a little toy steam, like pirate gun, and she had little, I don't know, jingle jangle things. And it made it look very kind of steampunky. So as people say, crossover. When you do a crossover, it's taking elements from 2 parts of 2 different types of, let's say, nerdy culture. One I saw the other day was Stormtrooper and Venom. So it was big. I don't know if you saw that then. A big dude, like chunky Venom kind of style. Because Venom from Marvel Universe is this big symbiote, muscle-bound thing, and it was with a Stormtrooper helmet and armor. So it looked quite good. I think that was in America. And it was, so people can do whatever they want, really. You could do a male Harley Quinn. You could do, how many Harley Quinns did you see throughout the whole day?
This year was probably the lowest amount, oddly.
Oh,
Normally,
really?
it's the guarantee that you go every 10 meters and you'll see a new Harlequin. I only saw maybe like 3 or so when I was there. They may have been on different days. I went on the Sunday, and I think a lot of the cosplayers normally try and do it on the Friday or the Saturday, especially when they have the big panels and that for cosplaying and all that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with these kind of events is that there's always not just guests, from shows and movies, but there's always someone from the cosplay scene that'll actually go through tutorials. For this one, they had Mystique was up on stage. So they had this woman and they started from scratch and slowly built up and made a whole Mystique cosplay showing you how to put it together, the different makeup techniques, all that kind of stuff. So it's not just to see people or that, but you can actually learn a lot at these kind of conventions if that's the kind of thing that you're into.
Yeah. Well, I think they're starting to. I imagine that's going to be a new thing. They're going to try. They want to bring that in. It's smart to bring that in to give people like a lot of these places and those shops, and you go into the shops, and there wasn't really a costume shop. You can buy paraphernalia, and you can buy memorabilia, and you can buy trinkets and things, but there wasn't really like. Yeah, I imagine a shop in, say, for instance, in Supanovas or Ozcons or whatever, but just conventions in general. You have a costume shop, someone comes in and goes, I want to be a Star Trek guy. Look at all these Star Trek guys. They can go, bang, bang, what's my size? Just call them a typical nerd and say they're a 5XL. Hey, I'm 4XL. So you got like this, and they can just jump in there and go that. And then if girls want to do it, and then go, hey, boom. So I should imagine they want to have more, you cater it more to have tutorials. You have cosplayers you can meet, like the fancier ones or the famous ones, and they can have little workshops, let's say. And you could do things with Warbler, and a Warbler is a material that you can bend. It's plastic. You can bend it and you heat it up, and you'll bend it to be shaped Supanova or whatever you want. Whatever you can do with it, it's quite good. You can make talismans and whatever. So there's workshops. I think they should start doing that. They should start doing workshops and bringing people in to go, hey, let's bring in more. Because it's a scene that's untapped. Because if you look at American conventions, everyone's fantastic. That's mostly due to the low price of stuff you can buy in America, whatever it is for American. However, in Australia, it's not that tapped into, so it's a market there. And I'd say there was a little thing, did you see it again with the photo op with like it was like a promotion for like Elder Scrolls?
Didn't see one for Elder Scrolls. There's always the Star Wars ones there.
Yeah.
So they have that group, I'm not sure their name, that all have the proper like stormtrooper outfits, the rebel outfits, all that kind of stuff. 444, 400 something or other. Yeah, something like that, the 400, yeah. If you have like your own cosplay or whatever, you can go up and get a photo with them. So a lot of Star Wars cosplayers will actually go to that section just to get their photo with the scenery and other cosplayers and that. Yeah. Although you always see the cross photos where someone in a cosplay for something completely random always gets their photo with a stormtrooper or that kind of stuff as well. But you are correct. The market for it in Australia, it's growing. You see cosplayers becoming more prominent. And you got to remember that a lot of people out there are making a living being a professional cosplayer at the moment. So it's certainly an industry that's growing. When you go to these conventions, you will find tutorials and you will be able to pick up little bits and pieces, but we're still yet to see whole stalls that will give you a whole complete costume, barring the odd piece. Like you'll see a Dragon Ball Z kind of, suit, so you can look like Goku or that, but not really to that detail of, like a Jon Snow. You're never going to find that kind of outfit at these places.
That's right.
But like I said, it is growing. There is cosplay conventions themselves starting to pop up. So I think as time goes on, that's going to become more and more prominent. But I mean, I guess the main focus of these kind of conventions is more the guests that turn up and the stalls that they do have.
Yeah.
Let's start having a look at some of the guests in that there. I might start with the biggest one there, Chuck Norris himself. Now, I know you used to watch a little bit of Chuck Norris back in the day.
The occasional Walker, Texas Ranger. Good times. And I think it was Delta Force.
Yeah, he did all of those kind of ones. And a little bit probably before our time, but still popular. Like he was that name that was always in, like whenever you thought any of those kind of roles, it was always him. And that's why I guess, those jokes started to pop up and that about him is because he was such a big name. It was assumed that he would be in these kind of roles. I'm sure you've got a few jokes for Chuck there, Mike.
So, here's a question for you. Who would win in a fight between King Kong and Godzilla? Chuck Norris. Well, is it in addition to that? Because you know why Chuck Norris will win?
Why?
Because he doesn't let his pets fight. Because there used to be a street called named after Chuck Norris, right? But you see, it got changed because nobody crosses Chuck Norris and lives. Oh, clever.
My favorite was Chuck doesn't dodge bullets, bullets dodge Chuck.
That's right. Chuck Norris pulled out a gun and killed an army of 50,000, and then he started shooting. Oh, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that joke because if you've seen, is it Expendables 2 or 3? I think it's 2.
I think it's the other was 3 with Chuck. Is that when he popped in there? Oh, 3.
Yeah, where he just, they're in the big firefight, and then all of a sudden they just hear a big fight go on when none of them are shooting. And next second, everyone's dead, and then Chuck Norris just walks through like nothing's happened because, it's so effortless for him.
It's Chuck, yeah.
So, yeah, it was really good seeing Chuck there. He was very popular. I didn't actually get a photo or to see his panel just because it was so popular.
Could you say that Death once had a near Chuck experience?
But yeah, he's just so popular and he was such a big name to be at the conventions. It's normally, I would say he's probably a tier above what we normally get. But yeah, it was incredible just to see how much hype was around him and the stuff, going on. Like, so people were so excited for him. And he wasn't even there. He was meant to only be there on the Sunday, but he ended up turning up early, I think, and just did a couple of photo shoots and all that just on the sly. So that was pretty crazy. The other person I didn't get to see was Stephen Amell. I know you're a bit of an Arrow fan.
I kind of was. Like, I mean, I don't mind it, but I think it's kind of, look, it's ongoing. I'm sure you really love it, but I think it's time to retire. No. So, yes, at the start it was great. Okay? That's all I'm going to say.
I thought when it first started out, it was a very interesting concept because the character of Arrow, or the Green Arrow, wasn't a mainstream kind of character.
I'm the Arrow. I'm a wannabe Batman. Where is he? You failed the city. I'm Batman. I thought it was a rip-off, a blatant rip-off, but it was about time that we had something that was decent for DC on TV. And it was just pretty much a poor man's Batman, like a Robin Hood, which was great in the first. But I recall a great article I read where it was, you know what the problem is? This other world. You know the problem with Arrow is, and it's the same kind of scenario every match. Like he'll go, I don't need anyone because I'm Arrow. And then he'll have an adventure and he'll lose and he'll have to remember that and learn that he needs his team. And then he'll be like, I love you guys. And then the next episode, I don't need anybody. And then, so it kind of, it just clicked with me. I was like, yes, this is so true. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think when they were doing the backstory for him, that was really interesting. Yeah. The story of him on the island, how he got to be where he is and why he was doing what he was doing was very, very interesting. And when Manu Bennett was on the show as Deathstroke, that was the biggest moment for the series. Manu Bennett added that class to it that they were desperately needing. Yeah. And Stephen Amell, obviously, he's a great actor. He holds himself very well, but
I think it's he's like he jumped into he was in Ninja Turtles number 2, which is Dan's favorite film yet to watch. And I think he is one of the next major stars, which I want to see him in bigger stuff. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. I think with it, it's just like he was the big star for Arrow, and then Manu Bennett was on there, but when Manu Bennett left, he was kind of left without that class around him. Yeah. And I think that's why Arrow has kind of slipped off the radar. Mm-hmm. It's still held together by the crossovers with things like The Flash, which The Flash was an interesting show for me because I remember really liking Arrow at the time, And when they announced The Flash, I was like, oh, we've got more stories for this. This is going to be amazing.
Mm.
And then when I watched the first episode, I can't remember being any more disappointed for a show than watching that very first episode.
Yeah.
It felt very teen. It really didn't feel like it was conveying itself very well. There was a lot of things not going right for it. So I remember, I don't even know why I stuck with it, because I was just like, oh, well, I guess because of the Arrow, I will, continue with it. But by the end of the first season of The Flash, I was so sold on it, and I loved The Flash so much more than Arrow, to the point that it was probably one of the contributing factors as to why I stopped watching the Arrow so much.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of got a bit confusing. And same with Supergirl. When Supergirl popped in as well, and then you had the crossovers, and it just got very confusing.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing is they're tying each other together. You've got Legends of Tomorrow as well,
Yeah.
and that's where like Carlos Valdez and there's a few other people on there. They were all at Supanova, and yeah, they're doing a good job of tying everything together because it really makes you invested. You're watching one, when the crossover happens, you want to know all about what's happening with the other ones, so you kind of stuck watching The Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow. Like it mounts up that a lot of shows that you're suddenly heavily invested in. So it's a very smart strategy for how they're marketing it. And it was cool to see Carlos there. In the past, we've had Danielle Panabaker turn up, and she was quite good to listen to as well.
That was the redhead one, isn't it?
Yeah, she's the scientist that works with
both,
Carlos or Cisco in the show. And she also does like Killer Frost in the show, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was good to see them. There's a bit of a theme about all of these kind of superhero ones and that from the series, not so much movies, but from the series.
Yeah.
For me, one of the big ones, though, was Finn Jones. Now, you'll probably remember him most from Iron Fist. It's a very polarizing show. People either love it or hate it. There's controversy that the character wasn't an Asian character, even though it's based off a Caucasian character. So I'm not too sure why that was such a controversy. There's a lot of things.
Millennials be millennials.
Yeah, there's a lot of things around it that was very interesting as to how people took out of it. But personally, I loved it. Seeing David Wenham in Iron Fist was amazing.
Yeah, creamy. Yeah.
And that really added the class. And I really thought that Finn Jones held himself really well in it. The only other thing that people really know him from is Game of Thrones, where he's Sir Loras Tyrell.
Right.
And that's not really the biggest role for it. It was interesting. I was going through and just working out exactly what he'd been in, and I didn't realize it's still the same actor when he goes and becomes one of the Sparrows. I actually thought that they'd changed the actor.
Yeah, so do I.
And that's, I guess, the testament of how much change. If you look at him in Iron Fist, if you look at him in Game of Thrones when that started, and then if you look at him when he becomes...
If you gave the guy a shave, he changes facial.
He changes quite a lot. It's quite a range of that you get out of the guy. But he was super nice. Like, I got my photo with him. It was super nice experience when you actually got to meet him and that. And you can really tell the vibe instantly when you meet some of these stars. Some of them just, obviously don't care or that. But the majority of them is just so well-spirited. That's why they go to these conventions. And he was definitely one of them. He was, really welcoming. And I think that's the kind of thing that people really look forward to going there.
Yeah. I want to know if we've ever seen Ian McKellen come to a convention in Australia.
Australia is such a harder market because of the travel and that for it. And there's no other like kind of stopovers. So some of them will go like to Europe or that, same as bands will, because you can do lots in America. You can do lots in Europe, Whereas when you come to Australia, like for these people, they're coming to two conventions normally. Like I said, they're normally paired. So, it's two conventions and then they're flying all the way back, considering how long that flight is from another country. And let's be honest, the conventions aren't as big here as they are overseas.
In America, I'd say even their smallest convention's bigger than ours.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but it's definitely, there is a noticeable difference, and that's why you see a different caliber of stars. And that's not to denote any of the ones that do come over here, because they are all big stars. But someone like Sir Ian McKellen, who you'd really ideally want to see with Patrick Stewart at the same time.
Yeah, that's right.
For the multiple things that they've done.
Yeah, the The nerd culture today is enhanced.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Like you heard about possible Patrick Stewart reprising his role
in
Star Trek.
oh, really? In Generations?
Yeah, there's a possible. So yes, you know how there's been this the newer Star Trek, which was what was it called again?
Discovery.
Discovery. They're looking at doing a revised next gen, like that would kind of follow after this. I don't know yet, so I don't know the full story. But he was in talks, so whether or not we see it happen or not.
Well, he's a man who doesn't age at all, so
I know. He's changed the same.
if anyone could do it, it would definitely be him. Speaking of people who have probably aged a little bit, some of the Power Ranger guys were there.
Oh, yeah.
David Yost and Karen Ashley.
From which series?
So the Blue Ranger and the Yellow Ranger. They're from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, yeah.
The originals, yeah. That's right. There's so many.
It's interesting that they still, like, I remember when Power Rangers was such a big thing, especially with the original series and all that.
Mm.
And I know that it still goes on a bit, but I'm surprised that there's still such a huge fandom for these original characters who haven't really.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot more costumes too. You know? I'm seeing a lot more cosplays where people go, oh, I'm Power Ranger, or I'm Power Ranger Space Force X 472. And they're like, yeah, okay. Because I think they should have just stuck with the whole Power Rangers by themselves. Like, you didn't have to have all these additional, you know, Power Ranger Ninja or Power Ranger Space Patrol, Power Ranger, you know, Air Force Cadet. You know, you could have just had Power Rangers and different, you know, they go on different adventures and different,
Yep.
And, you know, the whole, you saw this. Did I go with you and watch the new Power Rangers?
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah. I didn't mind that.
Yeah,
My big gripe for that was that it was less Power Ranger. It's more the backstories, which I get where they were going with it, I think, but there was so much build up to such a little actual Power Ranger time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Another person who's always there is John Jarrett.
Yeah.
He's always got his own little booth, and we always hear good
John
stories.
Jarrett. Remember that time last year and they wouldn't let me take a photo because he was like, you need to pay for it. I'm like, I don't have to pay for John Jarrett.
I do remember.
That's right.
But yeah, he's still there. He's obviously still pushing the whole Wolf Creek thing to movies, and you got the series and that with it, so that's still popular. But then he also did the movie Boar and Stalker.
Stalker. Yeah.
So he's still doing a couple of roles in that.
Yeah. Hey, what about Better Homes and Gardens? Hey, bring him back for that. This is how we're going to cut up your way with pantheon, eh? Gonna bury your kids in the back. Yep.
Flower on a stick.
Cow shit on the stick. Don't forget, you've also got, I mean, you don't probably remember them. You watched Jaws. You've seen Jaws, right? The original?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's a bit aged, hasn't he? Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh, yeah, he was there. I didn't actually end up seeing him, but I did see that he was there.
Right. Dun, dun, dun.
George is a classic. Like it's one of those films that you just can't ever go past. And it's something that there's been so many attempts at doing those kind of movies. You can never get back to that same vibe. Nowadays, the shark has to get bigger or...
What is Megalodon thing with Jason Statham that's coming out soon?
Yeah, the Meg. Yep. So it's the Megalodon is now the go-to for sharks because, you know, a normal-sized shark wasn't scary enough. So now you have giant ones. You've had things like, what was it, Deep Blue?
Yes. Number 2, wasn't it? Deep Blue 2? Deep Blue 2. It was like a sequel off the first one.
I don't know if I saw the sequel, but, you know, that's where you had, you know, an army of sharks chasing you underwater because one
genetically
wasn't
modified because they apparently. So I think I watched the trailer, and as per the first one, Deep Blue Sea, Samuel L. Jackson, who dies as usual, was like, they can cure cancer or something along the lines of curing something. And so we've made them bigger so we can build more of their brain. And then the sharks go, well, fuck you guys, I'm going to eat you. And thus the typical, oh my God, you know, the sharks on these planes. So that's the story. That's always the story with how the shark things happen.
Yeah, because the original one was Alzheimer's. They were trying to cure Alzheimer's by increasing their brain level activity, and that's how you had super smart sharks and that. But it's not even that. I mean, you got Sharknado because being in the water wasn't enough. Now you've got sharks and tornadoes chasing you on land.
So don't Speak of the Sharknado.
And then you got the hybrids. You got Sharktopus.
Yeah, Mecha Shark.
Yeah, Mega Shark and then Mecha Shark. And
Ridiculous.
yeah, it just doesn't end. So, so Jaws obviously such a big part of history because that's kind of where it started.
Number one. That was the father of shark films. El Papa. El Padrino. El Grandfather. He's the grandfather of the shark films.
Moving on.
You also had Kathleen Turner. Now, tell me, you know who Kathleen Turner is. Come on.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yes.
Yes.
But also the Romancing the Stone, and with Michael Douglas, still like back in the 80s. With films. But,
yeah, that's a bit before me.
Yeah. My parents were like, yeah.
I know Matt Ryan was there. Matt Ryan obviously doing Constantine, and then he obviously moved over to Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Constantine I thought was an interesting show. I know it got cancelled, but I thought he gave a pretty good impression of how Constantine would be. And
no, I haven't seen it. Did he have the English accent?
Yeah,
okay,
he did
so
really well. He
was
spot on. Yeah, he was.
And the effects weren't too bad?
No, it was pretty solid. It's just it wasn't a gripping kind of series. I find Constantine a hard character to really, it's one of those things that you imagine better than it normally is. So I thought he did a really, really good job of it, and I didn't think the series was bad. It's just obviously it wasn't enough to grip enough people to go back and want more. So
because if people want to watch more of that, or they want to know a bit more about Constantine, was it Justice League Dark, the animation?
Yeah, that was one of the more recent ones with the character in it. It's not him in it, but the character Constantine features heavily in that, the proper, more comic book style one.
Yeah.
But there is, obviously, there's a whole history of stories with Constantine, the character. It's quite a loved character. One of the other big ones was Summer Glau. She was there.
Summer Glau.
Now, she did the Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
That's right.
She's been in Arrow. But I guess what everyone really knows her from is Serenity and Firefly.
Right.
Still one of those shows that everyone is still waiting to magically reappear. Probably past the point that we can really bring it back. But it lives on in comics and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But Summer
what was
in
the
that.
character in Serenity or Firefly?
Wasn't it River?
River, that's it, River.
Yeah, so she's obviously playing the character who her brother tries to save at the very start of it and becomes the catalyst for so many events happening. And it was such a big point that the fans funded the movie to actually cover what happened to her and kind of give you a bit of, to really finish that storyline off. So there was so much more that series was going to do, and it's such a shame, but it's very interesting to see that she's still going on, and obviously she was there.
Well, she did such a good job.
I actually got stuck in line with this guy waiting for a Finn Jones photo. And obviously he was a bit nervous going in there. I guess everyone's always nervous about getting their photo taken. And he's just making a small chit-chat. And he was saying that he was very excited to get his photo with Summer Glau later because it was like a reunion photo for him. A couple of years earlier, he'd taken a photo with her.
And he's in jail.
No, he's definitely not in jail. But yeah, he'd taken his photo with her, and he was really excited to do another one. He'd actually gone over to America, and that's where he got the first one. And he was saying that he goes around. He spent over $900 on photos just at Supanova this time, and his thing is he just does a series of photos. So he'll see them one year, and the theme might be whatever. He mentioned one of the iconic scenes for the person he got photoed with was that they choked out a character. So he got his photo of being fake choked by this actor. And then he'd done the reverse. The second time he got the photo, he's like, oh, here's this original photo we did. Can we do it in reverse? And so he's fake choking the actor. And that was his thing. He oddly, I don't know what the reference was, but he gave Finn Jones a whole set of wombats, and he wasn't actually in the photo.
Wait. Is this an older guy?
Yeah, he was a bit older, yes.
There's wombats, brown wombats for charity or something like that?
I don't know what they were from. He just had an army of wombats.
Yeah, he could have been the same guy that I ran into at 10 Times New, the very one last year.
Probably the guy travels. Obviously, he was talking about American
okay. Yeah.
conventions and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
there you go, small world.
Small, crazy world.
But yeah, no, like Firefly, I think is one of those shows. Anyone who hasn't watched it, and I feel like there's not that many people out there that would listen to this that haven't. But if you haven't, please do yourself a favor and go watch it.
Check out Firefly.
Big for me was seeing Nolan North and Troy Baker.
Oh.
Now, they're everyone's favorite voices for all the video games. Troy Baker's been there in the past.
Mm-hmm.
He's fantastic to listen to. He's got a million stories from Kevin Spacey and Call of Duty. In his first time, he actually talked about Nolan North, which was funny that then they were both there. But they had on the Friday, I didn't get to go to it, they do a YouTube series, a little retro play kind of show where Troy Baker is actually kind of like the knowledge about all these old retro games, kind of like Aaron does for us. And Nolan North is just himself, and Troy kind of like introduces him or takes him back to these older games. And while Nolan North kind of plays it, and they, do their usual voices and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they did actually one of the shows at Supanova. They did that on the Friday. Then they had their own separate panels and that kind of thing. Nolan North was just amazing to listen to. He talked a lot about Uncharted, being one of the bigger ones for him. And it was very interesting listening to how he talked about the struggles of voice acting, the differences between being in a booth to the motion cap stuff. He was talking about with Uncharted, what they'll do is they'll get someone who's playing the video game in front of them, and he kind of like just narrates how the character would react to situations. So when someone's playing it, they walk up to a cliff, and it's his job to then do the whole, oh, I guess I have to climb this. Where do I look? And those kind of lines that he's saying there are recorded and actually put into the game. So it's interesting how obviously there's a script written for a game, but then they also do all this like improv stuff to go with it. But Nolan North, he's more than just voice acting. I would say he's probably the number one voice actor if you wanted a voice for your game. Like he's the kind of person, and Troy Baker's probably number two. But he's done so much more than just voice acting. He stars in series. He's been like in Pretty Little Liars. He even had a role on the Star Trek movie. He's done so much in his career that it's just so accomplished. And it was just so interesting listening to him, talk about that. Whereas Troy Baker, probably less on the acting side, but for the voices, some of the stuff that he's done there from The Last of Us, BioShock Infinite, Call of Duty, all that kind of stuff. Even one of the best things I ever heard him do, wasn't at Supanova, but at one of the other conventions, he did a reading from the Joker. Now, we all know how well Mark Hamill, does the Joker voice. But when you hear this recording of him doing this famous Joker speech, it sounded so perfect, so spot on. Like it was Mark Hamill level. But he doesn't just do the Joker. He's done Harvey Dent. In various things, he's actually done the voice of Batman and things like that. Like he's done a range of Batman characters. It's obviously something.
Who played that? Who did the voice of Batman for Arkham Origins? It wasn't. What's his name?
Kevin Conroy.
Kevin Conroy, because he is Batman.
Roger Craig Smith was Batman.
Okay. Yeah, he's obviously good enough. Anyway, because Kevin Conroy. Did you ever watch? There's a little video where they do Kevin Conroy and everyone else, like the DC guys doing Lord of the Rings. They're reading the script, and it's like,
no.
Batman's like, Barney is like, one does not simply go into Mordor. Because, it does the voice. And it's just good. It's awesome production stuff. If this is the will of the council, then Gondor will see it done. And it's like, Batman! That's just me. Anyway, moving right along.
You really took a tangent there.
Yep. So who else?
The last person that I probably wanted to mention was actually my number one person to go to for very different reasons. Raymond E. Feist was actually there in one of the book panels, so not up on stage doing the panels like everyone else, but he was in the the book section where you could buy all the books and that kind of thing.
Oh,
Whole bunch of authors were there from various book series, but Raymond E. Feist does a very well-known series called the Rift War Saga, I guess. Starts with the magician, and it's the story of two kids, Pug and Tomas, and essentially they start in their town. They have to get their own apprenticeships, and Pug isn't chosen for anything. He's kind of left out, whilst Tomas is sent off to the army to be a soldier. And eventually Pug gets, recruited to be a magician, which isn't a very popular kind of occupation at the time. And so they both go off on very, very different journeys and have incredible experiences. I won't spoil everything they go through, but they go on a tale that is definitely worth a read. So it was very exciting to actually meet Raymond E. Feist. I bought one of his books just to get it signed, but I was having a chat to him while he was signing everything and that. And I've done a bit of writing myself just on the side. Hopefully one day it becomes something, but at the moment it's nothing. And I said to him, when do you know it's time? Like, what's the moment that you reach where you go, this is when I start to look at actually getting published and I send it out or that kind of stuff. And he said, once you finish writing, you put it down, for a week or ideally for a month, go out, watch some movies, chase girls, all that kind of stuff. Come back to it, read it, not as a writer, but as someone who would read your own book. So someone who would read your own stuff. If you ever go to pick up a pen, at that point that you're not ready. And I thought that was very incredible that, when you can read your own stuff without ever going to make changes, then that that's the moment that you should probably be looking at getting published. So it was incredible. It was just crazy, talking to someone so big and who's done so well, so many books he's written now. He's just starting his new series. That, it was an incredible experience to actually talk to him one-on-one. And, it was more than just a photo. It was a full experience.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Now, who else was supposed to go but didn't go? Who cancelled? Which stars cancelled?
So there was Ian McDiarmid. You'll know him as Emperor Palpatine from a small kind of movie series called Star Wars. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, Mike.
Sure.
The other person who pulled out was Rosario Dawson, who actually personally I would have loved to have seen. She did Sin City.
That's right.
If you remember those films, I personally have a special spot for me.
She was a prostitute. She was like Hooker Town.
Yeah, she was one in those ones.
Town. Yeah.
She does some video games as well.
Okay.
Dishonored is one of the ones that she's known for.
Okay. Right.
So she's got a very distinct character. As soon as you see the character, you're like, yep, that's definitely her. So that was really good. She's probably more recently best known for the Netflix stuff, along with Finn Jones. She's in Iron Fist.
Yeah. Daredevil.
She's in Daredevil. All of them. She's in all of them up to the Defenders. She's one of those. She's probably the character that ties all of them together. Yeah. So it's normally incredible to see the work that she does, and it's a shame that she wasn't able to make it because I personally would have loved to have gone and seen her there. But that's pretty much everyone there. There's a few other people that I didn't get to see or that, but that's the kind of idea that you would be looking at if you did go to the convention.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely recommend. It's more than just the people that go there, though. It is the experience. You can get yourself drawn. There's so much artwork to be bought. It's people who want to sell what they do for a living because they love it. These people could all be out doing something else, but these are the people that are happy to do it rough and really put in the effort to sell their stuff. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't been to a Supanova in Australia, definitely make a point of going to one at some point.
Well, the next convention would be in September, was it? With OzCon?
Oh, you got Comic-Con coming up.
Yeah.
So Comic-Con is a little bit different, and I'm sure we're going to do another episode on that.
Mm-hmm.
But Supanova, it stands by itself. It's huge. It's great. And like I said, the last episode we did for this got quite good feedback, which is why I wanted to do it again. Mm-hmm. I've got a feeling we're probably going to end up doing this year in, year out and talk about all the different people, because it's a great, easy episode to talk about so many great people that relate to all the kind of work that we do. Mm. So
there wasn't any, I recall, I think it was not the year before, not last year, the year before, they did a little a Quidditch match and out on the greens. on the Saturday and Sunday. There wasn't one. I didn't see anyone there doing it this year.
I didn't see anything there, but there's normally so many things because not just what's organised at the convention, but so many groups that are going to the convention organise their own things around it.
Yeah.
So, after the event, there's normally quite a few people go out for drinks. The cosplayers normally get together for their own different things, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if there's something you're into, it's definitely worth keeping an eye on things like Facebook and that to work out what's actually going on around it, because it's not just the convention, it's everything that goes with it. And the fans make the event, and it's not just by turning up, it's by all the extra things that they do as well.
And always feel free to ask people, can I take a photo? Can I take a photo? And that's what their job is. They'll say yes. And it's a good, nice little atmosphere and lots of fun to be had with, I think. All right, so everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of the S.O.A.P. We talked about Supanova, Dan and myself. So look out for social media and check us up on Facebook, on YouTube, and on SoundCloud, and we will catch everyone another time. All right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
1 is the loneliest number. I'm so one way. Why am I so one way? Who? What? Chickbutt. Chugga. Chugga Hana. Chugga. Who's a what? Thank you.